doesn't kill you. It makes you stronger. You're
Exciting, exciting. Yes, 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 yes.
You can see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see you, but you're still.
Oh no,
Oh, there you're
hopefully
fine.
the Wi-Fi.
You're good. You're good now.
I'm so sad.
You're good.
Good?
Everything's good. You're
Okay,
animated. You're moving in real time.
great. Fantastic. We love to be moving in real time.
Yes, yes, yes. So Claire, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Vogelsang.
Okay, Claire Vogelsang. We are.
Yeah, try.
You're still frozen. I wonder if we can get a better connection. Should I re-invite you? Say it again.
Vogelsang. Or if you want to say it the German way, it's going to be Vogelsang.
Vogelsang.
There you go. We'll just be German today.
Okay, so we can go as long as we want. This is episode 81 of Brett's with Friends, and the subject matter is going to be intense. But what I usually like to do is a beginning or past, present, and future.
Okay.
And there might be a part towards when it gets about 45 minutes or 15 minutes that the Zoom is going to shut off, and I'd like to have you back and wrap it up if we're still going, but because I'll have to I didn't pay for the extra.
Right.
I will. Times are tight. Live how you live.
We get it. Yeah.
But information's information. So just real quickly, I met you about a week ago at the Crafters Market in Silverton, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And we struck up a conversation right away. And what first of all, your past. Let's talk about your past and what brought you to be doing the things that we got caught up in a really crazy, amazing conversation for about 2 hours with, or an hour or whatever over there. But tell us a little bit about you and where you come from, and then we'll go into where you just came from. How about we start there?
Yeah.
And go back. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, personally, I guess I am from Spokane, Washington. I grew up on a llama farm. And then let's see, lived the normal Spokane life until I came to Oregon for college. And then for college, we got into social work and studied Spanish along with that. And then I have some experience working in domestic violence, as well as I did an internship abroad in Ecuador working with survivors of human trafficking.
Okay, stop right there for a second. I usually cut people off, but we have to, because we're going to get into that. That's we're getting into the deep stuff. But I'm not trying to cut you off or anything, but like it's the llama farm.
Oh, llama farm. What would you like to know about the llama farm?
Well, when we met, Caesar, the No Drama Llama, showed up.
Yes.
And I'm going to post a picture of you and the No Drama Llama right here because I am a Caesar fan. Caesar. So what was it like growing up in a llama farm?
I mean, when you are growing up somewhere, you don't think of it as weird, right? That was my norm. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older and people were like, wait, what? You grew up on a llama farm? What was that like? And I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't know. There were a bunch of llamas around, and I let's see, showed them at fairs, and I was like the little kid with like the little outfit and just brought the llama around through the obstacles. And
how old were you when you
all that? I mean, it was until the time I was 8, so it's pretty small. Wee lad.
You're in the llama entertainment business at an early age.
Yes, exactly.
What should we know about llamas?
They have 2 stomachs. They are very similar personality-wise to cats. You have to earn their trust. They each have a very unique personality. One thing is that they are also guardian animals. So you can put a single llama with like a herd of sheep, and it will protect them from coyotes or other predators.
What? A llama will do that?
Yes, it will. Yeah.
And because I went through when I was in Solvang, I went through that ostrich farm thing, and they said that I said, what happens if the coyote gets in here? And they said, well, one got in there last week, and they basically stomp the shit out of it, basically. And it's a coyote is not going to fare well with a bunch of ostriches.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think most of us would bear well with a bunch of ostriches. Have you seen the claws on those things?
Oh, they're completely primordial and prehistoric. I love them.
Those things are freaking terrifying. Those are
They're amazing creatures. Those feet are like fucking Jurassic Park. That's like,
yeah.
it's when you feel like when you get close to one, it feels like very dinosaur.
Yeah, you're back in the prehistoric ages. Yeah.
And so, how long will llama protect itself or protect others? The herd.
How long? What do you mean?
How will they protect the other animals and the llamas if they're protector animals? Uh oh, you froze up. We're gonna get this. I have ultimate patience. Forward. All right, that was semi-painless.
Yes, we are back.
Yay! Woohoo! We're back with Claire Vogelsang. I'm just gonna destroy your name by the time. I'm dyslexic. Volsang.
That's enough. I've heard it all.
Yeah, this is like water off a duck's ass right now. It's like trust me. So now let's talk about the women involved or males involved, or whatever he, she, there involved in identifying a victim. And then maybe we can talk about how maybe we could help.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently saw that one thing where the waitress asked that little boy through a note if he was in trouble or needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And then they caught him.
Mm-hmm.
Inside that
Yeah.
restaurant.
It's typically not that simple.
Okay, so the floor is yours.
Yeah. So I guess I never even said what I do, because people don't know what even my job is. So I guess I will say I recently started a position as the human trafficking task force coordinator for a local county here in Oregon. And then I also am a bit in an advocate role as well. And we'll do on-call shifts and advocate work where I'm doing case management directly with survivors. But a lot of it is partnership with law enforcement and other agencies. And just like that's a huge piece that we'll get to, I guess, more later.
Yeah.
But in terms of identifying like victims themselves, and it is most of the victims that we see, they are female identifying. So that means that either there also are on occasions like young male who are taken advantage of in this way, and there is this very specific demand for that as well. But more often than not, we're seeing like trans youth and female identifying in general. But that being said, as far as one of the biggest indicators is that you're seeing a lot of like sudden changes with, so let's say, because our focus here and most of the time, victims are recruited into the sex industry as teenagers, and sometimes younger as well. But so we're looking at that population, like school-aged population, and it's like they suddenly start to run away from home a lot more. Maybe suddenly they have these expensive acrylic nails. Their clothing kind of starts to change, and maybe is not weather appropriate at all. So it's like winter, but then this girl's in like a skimpy, little dress. And then they're going to be using more explicit language, or there's this whole subculture of language associated with the sex industry, and they're going to be using a lot more of that language. And
can you give it as an example of that kind of language?
Yeah, so I mean, being like, say even on their like social media, they'll be like, oh, married to so and so, or property of so and so, or there's there's a whole thing, or it's like if you're like out of pocket, which I guess is a phrase that youth are starting to use these days. I don't know.
I
You're
don't know.
out of
I've known about out
pocket,
of pocket
just
all my
not like
life.
following the rules per se. But um yeah, but then there's also another one that's become popular. It's like, oh, my wifey, but actually, or my wifey-in-law. But in the sex industry, your wifey-in-law is the other girl that's being, pimped out with you, you know. And so, or it's, oh, my daddy, right? Like your pimp is your daddy, and that's a big one. And there's, the the Johns, the buyers, they are they're a trick. So, oh, I got to turn a trick tonight. Or I have a date tonight, and that's obviously someone that's, going to buy them tonight. Or there's just there's a whole multitude I could get into, but those are just a few. But also a big thing as well is like branding tattoos, or gang related looking tattoos. Sometimes it'll be sometimes it'll literally be like the street name of their pimp that has been tattooed on them.
Wow.
So they're literally, you're treated like cattle, and you are his property, and he is marking his property. So you'll see
Are
a lot
those prevalent? Like, is that more of a global thing than the United States? That branding part?
Yeah, it's pretty common. I think particularly in Western countries, I would say, because it does look a little bit different when we're talking. I don't know. If we're looking at sex trafficking in India per se, it looks quite a bit different than it does, in the US or in Germany. So, but that's a whole other
Yeah, it's a
tangent.
whole So what? I want to talk to you about. Was there another part of that you wanted to talk about?
A couple other things. It's like, you have a teenager with multiple cell phones, or that, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of other big ones. I think that, or like there's showing like pornographic like images on social media, or those are, these are, yeah, there are more I could add, but those are kind of the first things that come to mind.
Because those have lots of offshoots if you start thinking about it like that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
nuts.
But a big thing
if I had kids, I would never put them on social media. I love my friends that have kids and stuff like that, and it's great, but I don't know. It's such a fucking scary world out there.
It is, and a lot of this all actually transpires on social media these days. It's like maybe that first connection with a pimp, but as well as a lot of even buying and selling, it's happening like online, especially with COVID and everything else. We're in like this digital age where it's, you can buy someone at the click of a button, and whether that's someone that's going to meet you at a motel, or whether that's someone that's going to, perform sex acts
when that's even
online.
Dangerous, and that's even dangerous for the person that doesn't know about any of this that
exactly.
we're talking about. He or she just thinks they're just going to go fuck somebody, and there's a potential for a great amount of damage there, not just if it actually happens, but if it doesn't happen, then somebody's at the door inside to fucking beat the shit out of you and take your money.
Yeah, right.
That's a dangerous world.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, what were we gonna say again?
Oh no, go ahead.
Was that it for that? Okay, I don't know how much of you could talk about, but I'm just gonna ask it anyways. The Epstein Island stuff.
Yeah, I think that gives us a good look into how girls can be used to recruit other girls, because that happens quite often. And so, I mean,
they have his lap. They have when this all broke out, they got, you know, you probably more than know than anybody. I know that there are certain things you can't talk about regarding this subject, but they grabbed all of his fucking computer files. Remember when they said, "Oh, he asked if he could be in-house jailed," and they're all, "No, we're not gonna put you inside your multi-billion-dollar mansion with everything you have and put a thing on your." And I knew when I heard that because they said, "No, you're going to jail." That was a death certificate.
Mm-hmm.
But they have the names. They have Giselle. Hopefully she survives and lives to sing like a bird, or if she hasn't already done that already.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's a lot to that, and people are slowly coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened," and as it dissolves, like even with the Playboy Mansion, like Hugh Hefner before he died had all you know all his rooms were filmed.
Mm-hmm.
They were filmed. He had videotaping going 24/7 at the Playboy Mansion. He had his lawyer or somebody drive it into the middle of the ocean and dump all the VHS tapes before he died.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, what can we see? I mean, what are your I don't want to be too specific because I don't want to put you on the hook for anything. But like, what do you want to talk about that just for even a few minutes about like
I
how
mean,
it's being played out in social media and how this is being played out in real life and the dynamics of that, and will there be consequences besides the fact that he got his neck broke twice, which you can't do yourself.
yeah, I mean, it's yeah, that's this whole other, where to even begin, right? I mean,
anything that you feel free that you cool to talk about. That's really
I mean, I think that with situations like this, I think part of the danger is people view them as like, oh, this just happens with like, oh, this is just this like some rich guy that like, you know, set up this whole scheme and this is like super rare, right? Or maybe this only happens like with people like him. But it's I mean, it's not rare, unfortunately. And it's both people with a lot of money and power, and it's, you know, your average Joe. Obviously not, but they might appear to be your average Joe, right?
yeah.
And I think too, in terms of one big piece, I mean, I could even get into the whole like massage parlor and masseusing, and then there's also like the escort service per se. There's all these different pieces that are all involved with trafficking, all involved with the sex industry, and like in the ins and outs, it's all connected, right? And even it reminds me, there's so there's a local drama case happening with a couple politicians who went to this obviously not legit massage parlor.
How can you tell if they're not legit or not? I have a story, but I don't know if this is the forum to tell it on. But like, how do you know to spot a jerk off massage place and a not jerk off massage place?
Well,
some people don't want to go in there and get that, and then all of a sudden it's happening. They're like, "Oh shit, I didn't know it was this place."
Right, and I think sometimes it's more obvious than others. With this particular case, you look at a photo of this place and it's literally like a sketchy looking little building with like a paper sign that says massage on one side.
Scotch tape to the window.
And we have these two local politicians. Well, first there was one that my guess is that someone saw him coming out of this place, or you know, someone found out something, and then he was like, "Oh gosh, I need to save my political career, so I need to appear to be the victim here." So he's like, "I have been sexually assaulted. I was just trying to get a massage. My chiropractor was all booked up, and this was the only place that was open past 8." You know, I didn't even think about the fact that it was cash only, and you know, and that when I walk inside, there's nothing but a bed just like on the floor, you know. I had no idea, and I was shocked when this girl just like started touching me, you know.
You can only imagine my horror.
Yeah, exactly. You can only imagine the
what I went through
and the pain that I experienced through this. And then, so you know what he does too.
Why are your tips so heavy?
Initially, he, you know, like calls the police and he's like, we need to arrest these women for prostitution charges, you know. And then because we've progressed a lot and we know a lot of things now in terms of like he's saying, then these women hardly even spoke like English too. And not to say a lot of trafficking victims are, you know, from like are actually local or, you know, from the US and trafficked within the US. But of course, there are also victims that, you know, were brought from overseas. And these women, you know, they like hardly even speak the language or anything. And the DA's office, they're like, we're not going to prosecute them. You know, that's not how we do things, you know. And so then this guy is like, oh wait, okay, so we need to flip this again, and oh my god, these might be trafficking victims, and the like no one's doing anything about it. So I am a victim, they are victims, but I'm going to now center my whole campaign around, you know, like bringing justice, and I'm going
yeah, I am going to clean this town up one jizz rag at a time.
I will do the work that the police and the DA refuse to do.
I've been on the inside. I know how calculated and smooth these characters are.
Yeah. And yes, and so I mean he's suing the massage parlor as well as the DA's office.
Massage parlor is $500 a month rent. They're out of there. That's it. They don't have anything.
Yeah, and then to add another layer, then the mayor of the town, he comes in, he's like, oh my gosh, I had the same experience as you. Wow. I was shocked as well.
Wow. Well, at least they got that in common, and that's you know, that's a platform they could stand on.
Yeah. Right.
I was a victim too.
Exactly. And so there's more I could add to that, but that's just, I don't know, an interesting situation that has been on my radar this last week.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I know that we know that the women are not going to be charged, and we know that so one thing that I'm actually actively trying to learn is what the main barriers are to shutting down these places that are obviously not legit, that are unlicensed. And one thing is that I've learned that if you use certain terminology in advertising your massage place, then you don't need a license. And so they're, you know, going without regulation, whereas you have the whole like massage licensing, you know, board. And if you say that it's like hand and foot massage, then that is like a separate thing that doesn't need a license. Or if you're like not specific, I don't know, because again, I'm learning as much as you guys are on this whole massage parlor issue right now.
You know, it's a trip. As I was staying in the Hollywood area, near the Bowl, and everybody there, you know, people drive around the neighborhood, they think you have money, you know, which I don't. And yeah, but with your contributions, you can PayPal me. No, but this Mexican girl started up a conversation with me. I was like in a tear. She's really cool, and she's like, hey, if you ever need any, you know, special needs at all, or you know, a date or anything like that, here's a card to my friend's business. Give it a shot. And I was like, I'm in this big mansion by myself, and I'm like, haven't gotten laid for a while, and I was like, okay, so I called it, and it's a pizza place, and I went to the website. It was a pizza place.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the phone, and there's a guy that answered the phone, and he said, And they had a full menu and stuff like that. And I was like, is there code in here? What's going on? Is this because when you do get the point where you are making a phone call like that, just out of curiosity, just um and a guy answered the phone and I said, hey, like, so my friend gave me this card and I didn't know what to order. And he's all, well, you could order a meatball sandwich, you could be order a chicken. We got lots of great things here at this restaurant. I was all like an Alfredo or like what the fuck are we talking about?
Like, what does this mean?
Like, what's the, well, I didn't know the translation or if I was actually calling a pizza place and this chick was fucking horking me. But I was just like, check this rich white guy. I mean, which is could be far, but it was just so funny to have that experience. Like, actually, I was like, because when you're making the phone call, you're like, am I gonna do this? And then you're like, pizza toppings. I don't know what you're talking about. I just want a blowjob. No. You're making me. You're making me
so do I get the sandwich before the blowjob? Like,
yeah, we get a little common ground here. we got a Swedish meatball. What the fuck are you talking about? I digress. So where's the state of in your industry, and you're focusing more in Oregon, or do you go outside of that because you've been all around the world a few times? But like, are you focusing all your attention right now in Oregon specifically, or that branch out into other areas of the U.S.?
Yeah, the focus is on Oregon. My particular agency, we have 3 counties that we operate in, but then we're also in connection with all of the other task forces for human trafficking throughout the state of Oregon, and have like monthly meetings with them so that everyone is kind of on the same page and, you know, using similar efforts and collaboration. So
is there a peak or a pattern in which you find there is more trouble out there than not? Like, is it busier for this kind of sex trafficking during the summer, or is it worse in winter when it gets colder and people become a little bit more desperate if they're homeless?
Well, I mean, I feel like there's always a demand, right? But part of it is when we're able to identify victims. And because we're talking a lot of school aged, you know, youth, it's similar to, you know, identifying child abuse. And even though we know with like, say, COVID in the last few years that like abuse and domestic violence and like homicide rates, like these have all gone up, but there's not as much of an ability to track it when you are not in person, when you don't have teachers and mentors, people actively around to say, hey, something seems off. And so, you know, as much as, you know, maybe I would say as far as like sex tourism and all of that, like that's going to be up in the summer because people are more like free in the summer. But when it comes to actually being like, oh, hey, like something seems off here, it's a lot harder because you don't have like a teacher who sees them every day, or that can say, hey, they haven't been in school for a week, or they've been gone for a couple weeks now. We don't know what's going on. And it's kind of expected that kids and people are going to be just kind of more out and about in the summertime.
Yeah.
That
that's a trip. So social media is playing. I mean, it must be like fucking whack-a-mole because there's like so much TikTok and like who knows what's talking. You know, like
right,
talking to the child,
and it's changing and evolving so fast all the time. You know, social media, it opens up so many different avenues and new ways, you know, to both victimize others and to buy and sell and all of that.
Does it do like the history of this has been going on throughout time and space, basically with one form or another?
Yeah.
Is there, I mean, what would you like to, I mean, what are and we talked a little bit about this when we first met, but I'm just remembering it now, but like, like what would you like to see happen in the next few years with this, like that's tangible, doable, accessible, that would change the bend the time, bend it back
Yeah.
until it doesn't stop, or until it eradicates it, or is it just about culling the herd and getting what you can and seeing if that makes an effect?
Yeah, so there are multiple pieces to that. And of course, first step in anything is awareness and education. Um, so, I mean, people need to know the realities of human trafficking, what it is, what it looks like, that it's not just what you see in the movies. And there also needs to be less of a I don't know. I mean, I think that I could go into this whole thing about the objectification and sexualization of women, and you have porn culture, and you know, all of that.
Take a few minutes, man. You got time.
Well, I mean, one thing that people don't realize is that the porn industry and the sex industry, they're best friends, and they interact with each other frequently. People get trafficked into porn, but also we see that when someone consumes more porn, especially once you get into the more hardcore stuff, you have, like child porn, which the US is #1 in the globe for in terms of production. We have more child porn than any other country.
Wow. That's a fact.
Yeah.
By how much?
I mean, we have like I can't give you the exact numbers, but
that's what, does there that sort
monetary
of
value?
Does that spread so people from all over the world and other continents would be the outlet for that?
Exactly. Yeah, that is correct. But another piece of that is in other countries and globally, unfortunately, the statistics show that Americans are the #1 sex buyers around the globe. So we have that as well. But the thing is, it all increases demand. And so as long as we believe that women and children are, objects that should be or can be bought and sold, then we're going to continue to have the issue. And a lot of that is culture and what's normalized, what we view as okay versus not. And some of it is also just, by no means am I saying, oh my God, like if you watch porn, then you are, implicit in the,
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I've never watched porn in my entire life. I'm clean. I'm a virgin. I've never done anything bad in my entire life. I don't. What is porn? Okay. Continue.
Right. So caveat there, but it's just as like an understanding that it is something that is connected, and understanding that it is something that fuels just the sex industry in general, and that there are a lot of cases where people, get in and are either trapped there, coerced there, and they don't know how to get out. And there's a lot of abuse within that industry. But it also,
have you seen it be more of abuse in the past, or is it just ramped up to now? Is it still did it get supercharged since it began?
That's something that I would say it has definitely always been an abusive industry, and there's always a lot underneath the surface that we don't see, especially as if you're on just the consumer side. There's so much you don't know. It's you're just getting off to that, but it's you don't know the whole backstory of oh, this performer, are they being treated right? Are their rights being respected?
Oh yeah, you don't want to know their backstory. You want to see if people were to see the cows they eat, how they're killed, you wouldn't even puke up their burger.
Right. Yeah. It's but it's like another thing to it is that like we know that like the sex industry in general, it is like the what's the word? The like collision of all of the isms. It is sexist, it is racist, it is, you know, misogynist, it is like it's classist, it's like just all of those isms that you could like possibly think of pretty much are like in just like in this industry, right?
Yeah.
And you see that even in like, you know, you think of like porn titles and it's, you know, it's like black teenage girl, like, you know, gets like getting raped at a party or something, you know, it's like, and then you're like, how is this something that is like,
Yeah, it's like it is a bit of an unregulated, you know, and they can't really, I don't know, that would go into actually darker stuff is the snuff film industry. I don't even know if that exists, but that was when I was growing up. They are always this snuff film where they're banging this chick and they take her in pieces. I mean, that's dark shit. I don't know if that was ever a thing, but I mean, it was alluded to. There's that kind of shit happens, and if it were gonna go dark, that probably might be the darkest shit you could think of.
right. And you know, when and it the porn itself becomes this rabbit hole where it's literally your brain treats it as a drug.
Nope, it's a
And
dopamine hit.
yeah, it's a dopamine. Exactly. And you have to keep ramping it up more in order to reach that same like high. Because you do become desensitized and then, you know, but also there's this addiction piece and your brain like craves it. And I mean, I could go into this whole thing of like mental health as well and how it like takes a toll on your personal mental health as well as, you know, it's found to be super damaging to intimate relationships as well. But there's just like so many different pieces. But anyhow, just the drug piece, like your brain literally treats it as a drug and you have to constantly up the intensity in order to get what you are trying to get out of it. And so then as you become desensitized, then you are also going to, you know, develop maybe these like weird niches and get used to this violence and everything. And then you're also a lot more likely to go out and buy, you know, sex like and want to reenact these violent and you know, oftentimes really awful like scenes that you have become like accustomed to get off to, you know.
Yeah, if somebody was doing some of this shit in the same room you're in, you're like, somebody should get a cop. Somebody should, we should, is everything gonna be all right? I don't think this is like gonna be good.
Exactly. And then that also gets us to the point of like, you know, working in prostitution is just really dangerous. There's a 50% homicide rate. Like you have, if you are working in prostitution, you have a 50% chance of being killed. And most women have reported being raped. Most have experienced like intense physical like violence against them, both from their pimp and from, you know, the buyers.
So where do you want to see this going? What were because I would like to get you back if we get kind of if you want to go back for one more third dip, we could wrap it up. But because some of these conversations shouldn't end, but we got 7.5 minutes, so and then we can come back if you want. Just let me know, and we could wrap it up. We don't have to go as long. But like I hate to say it, but like, where's the state of the industry right now? Like with combating this, it's like this giant thing. It's a global beyond, and you don't know the tendril. I mean, it's an octopus, it's like a Cthulhu. You know, it's fucking got like so many different fucking parts and shit like that. So the awareness part and the education, and would that mean like how would you say it? Like before a lot of these are runaways and foster cares and stuff like that. And I know I'm not a parent, you're not a parent, I don't believe, but what can we do to try to make this not even happen in the first place?
Right.
Is that education? Is that Everyone needs a hug. Love your child. Give them gummies. like how do you make them not do this? Like, and it's not saying this as a victim, or they chose it, but like how can we supersede that, I guess, is in a way, if that's even a question that's even makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. But there's not just one answer. It's like, it depends on what angle you want to come at it from, because I mean, there's the piece of just making sure that maybe even we have more like after school programs, or we have more like resources just for youth in general, so that they have a safe place to go. And making sure that if a child, say, of course, ideally, we would have all positive at-home environments, but that's not necessarily the reality we live in, right? Like, things are going to happen. People are not always going to come from, the best backgrounds, or their families don't have the resources, support they need. There's just shit is going to happen. But at least it's like, how do we pour in still resources, and how do we make sure that when kids either like run away, or because it is often runaways, so in that scenario, like, how do we make sure that we get them off the street as soon as possible? How do we make sure that they are aware of where they can go to be safe? And then we need a whole reform of the foster care system itself. I could talk for hours on that, because that's a mess. And so, there's that piece, and there's also educating youth so that they know, both for their own sake, but also for their peers. When they see that things are changing, or suddenly your friend has this 25-year-old boyfriend, and you're in like high school, and he's buying her all these things, like, that should raise some red flags.
If they're not a pimp yet, they want to be one.
Yeah,
right. They're working towards it. They might not be when they're 25. It could be when they're 26, 27, 28, 34. They could be preying upon. It's they're learning.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like youth education and youth resources. But then there's just tackling the whole issue of demand. And I could go into like the whole Swedish model. Like, Sweden has been really successful in completely like eradicating sex trafficking in their country. And they have done so by both providing resources to women that they identify who are in the industry, in the life per se. That's the colloquial term, the life or the game. And then they have pretty harsh penalties for both the buying and like the selling on part of like traffickers. There's very harsh penalties for traffickers, but then there's also penalties for buying. And so it turns the responsibility not on these girls who are just by the nature of it being exploited, but instead onto those who are buying from them. But then there's also a lot of a cultural shift where they really try to teach positive and healthy relationship skills as youth are growing up, as they're going throughout school. And so when we're talking like even sex ed, these classes are more teaching a lot of, in addition to those things appropriate with age, but like just basic relationship skills and boundaries and what a relationship should look like. And then also just they try to make it very clear that human beings should not be made to be products, that we should not, it's like a whole shift that they try to teach from a young age, whereas other cultures are a lot better at just, over sexualizing and commodifying others.
Okay, and so the next part, remember this, because we're going to cut off right now. I'm going to bring you back to the third time. So the third time's a charm. I want to think about that part of society that we grew up in, I grew up in, where sexualization of children And let's do a little deep dive of that because I got my thoughts as well. I grew up with Shirley Temple, the girl that had the before your time. You probably don't know who Shirley Temple is.
Oh, of course I know who Shirley Temple is.
Maybe we'll put a little Shirley Temple on right now. I love Shirley Temple. I didn't think she was sexualized until I got to be a little older. I was like, she's on a big boat with a bunch of sailors. I mean, she's got, but that was anyways, let's get back to that. I'll call you and I'll send you a thing and we'll talk. I'll be right there in 4 minutes.
All right. Perfect.
You do it? All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's think about that question. I'll come back. Wrap it up. There's just so much to talk about.
Yes, there is. I know. Third round.
Third round. Whoa, Claire made it to the third round. Woo!
I get a prize.
I have to get you like a buffalo shirt or something.
Oh, well, I'll take a buffalo shirt.
They're good. They're cute. I gotta make them again. They're just a lot of work, and people don't want to pay more than $20 for them. But I'm gonna start charging $100 for the shirts.
There you go. Get your money's worth.
Of course, they're fucking good shirts. Or 150. Okay, so we digress. Where do we leave off? I left it up to you to remember.
Oh, okay.
It was,
where do we leave off on?
Retain that thought. It was how the Hollywood industry or just entertainment industry doesn't have to be just LA. It's around the world since Egyptians and Romans and glorification of, let's be specific, children.
Yeah. Sexualization of children.
So where do you want to begin with that one? How can we, where is it? Was it? We got 20 minutes. Where do you want to begin with that? What do you, how we know what, can you pinpoint when you started recognizing it when you were young or when you started saying, oh, that was a little risque? I mean, we had the Calvin Klein ads. Remember those Calvin Klein ads where that one photography, it was really good photography. This one guy was interviewing this is before your time. But like when I was in high school, these Calvin Klein ads came out and there is like a stark lighting camera on a young male, probably 15 to 16, 17 maybe, and females, and he would Q&A them about like, what does it feel like to be in your own skin or something like that, like weird shit. I'm not quoting it correctly, but it's also been that got in a lot of trouble as well. Like back in my day, I was like, we're like, what the fuck is like child pornography is what they were.
What's happening here? Yeah.
The movie Kids as well, which is a really well made movie, but it was, and I think Euphoria is sort of, I haven't watched Euphoria, but it's taking a note, which I'm surprised it took longer not to get that note, like from, because did you ever see the movie Kids?
No, I haven't.
You should check it out. It's I forget the director's name. It's edgy as shit. It all takes place in there. It's a cult classic, I guess, at this point, but it's very raw.
All right.
Fiction of New York teenagers at night and the nighttime. It opens up with a sex scene. And the characters are supposed to be like 15 to 16 years old.
Right. Yeah.
So where do we go from here? Like, where do we? I know we're not going to wrap it up, and we're going to wrap it up, but we're not going to explain this whole thing. But your thoughts. Is there a specific? What would be the avenue of better understanding to get out of this, where it's not killing kids?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there has to be a whole kind of cultural shift around there, and we know that is no easy task, right? But it's not a hopeless fight. We know that it just is a long fight. It's not something that's just going to change overnight. But it's just as, how are we presenting kids and teens in our media, and like, why are we normalizing like just like this like kind of hyper sexualization of children who don't have really the ability to even make even remotely informed decisions about life. and that's kind of what's like, to take the other side, like that's like the sexy thing, right? You have this person that like doesn't really know much, who sees you and is like, looks up to you and
Innocence.
hmm?
Innocence.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's this innocence that has made to be this like sexy thing because you can't easily manipulate, someone who is like, 30 years old who's lived a lot longer than like
I
a
don't know. There's a red herring in there somewhere. You can manipulate
anyone.
anybody if you have the willpower and that brain part of you that wants to do that. You could do that till the day you die.
It's true. That's 100%
That's what people
true.
become. There's an Alan Watts thing because he's like the pain body will become. Do you know about Alan Watts?
Yeah.
About the pain body will envelop the personality. It'll become the personality of the host's
Right.
subject.
Yeah.
So it'll do anything else that needs to be fed to stay alive. It needs to be fed to stay alive.
Right.
And it'll feed on your friends, your family. It'll feed on anything you get fucking a hold of. And then sometimes the person isn't even aware that they're doing that.
Yeah.
They're completely unconscious of that.
Right.
Or if they are, they get off on it.
Right.
Anyways, that was my soliloquy. Alan Watts, everyone should know Alan Watts. But and I butchered the shit out of that quote. But like what were we talking about before I interrupted you?
I mean, we're talking about like easy prey and just, I could get into like a whole
like the easy prey, like how to avoid I mean if we can save one person's life or even half a person's life or even give somebody the inclination that they might be in trouble with this podcast, that would be whatever. It's a inspiration is what we're about and passions and stuff like that.
Right.
But like anyway, to spread the message, like I guess how do people where are the outreach places that people can reach to if they find themselves in this situation? Are there 800 numbers? Are there websites? Are there organizations?
There is a trafficking hotline, as well as, I mean, they could call my agency. We have a 24-hour hotline.
What's the number?
So, and the name of my agency is Safety Compass. But let me pull up the number. Gosh, I should know. I should have it memorized.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. Right.
See, you thought this was over and I was kept on your toes. You're like, you had to go for the fucking keypad. You're like, hold on. Let's get this.
My God. All of my little confidential cards and things are in the other room. No, the number is 971-235-0021, or if we need the National Trafficking Hotline, that is 1-888-373-7888. But there are always people that are on the other side of the call, that are waiting and ready to help create a safety plan, who are ready to meet you where you are at, whether you're ready to get out or whether you're not, whether you just need someone to talk to. We're there. And we know too that in terms of getting out of the life, that is not an easy process. It's similar to, well, there are a lot of differences between it and domestic violence, but similar in terms of, you have Stockholm syndrome, you have all of these things that's like multiplied from domestic violence, but on average, it takes a victim of domestic violence 7 times of trying to leave before they are actually able to get out. And that's 7 times of coming and going, or like returning to their abusive partner before they actually leave. So it's not, this is another misconception, that people are just like waiting for you to like help them, to save them, that they are like chained up, and that, but the reality is a lot of people don't know what's happened to them. And they have been told that they can't do anything else, that they have nowhere to go, and they have become completely dependent on their trafficker, and they're afraid of their trafficker. And if they feel like if they do try to speak up, then their life is at stake, which it is. And that's why it's something that we have trouble communicating to law enforcement. It's law enforcement are like, oh, this person's not cooperating with me, they don't want my help. And the reality is, it's like, no, they deep down, like, they want out of their situation, but their life is at risk by talking to this police officer, and you add the whole piece of complex trauma where, so much of what you see is just coping mechanisms, like on the outside, just like pure coping mechanisms. And,
And what can you real quickly tell us what those identifying things are? Coping, when people are making coping, it's my dyslexia. But like the mechanism that you just spoke of, what does that look like with facial mannerisms, body language, flirtation, non-flirt, mean? What is that? That's a big question, but you triggered me, so I gotta ask.
Yeah, I mean, one piece of that is, let's say, particularly in case of like law enforcement, it's like, the kid who very well might be, being trafficked is the kid that is flipping you off and telling you, like, fuck off, like, leave me alone. It's, and they're going to maybe, I mean, they'll either be kind of shut down, dissociated, or they're going to be very like verbally aggressive potentially, and just like not cooperative or not kind, or they don't, a lot of times victims don't do very well in court either, because they don't like, because of all the trauma they've experienced, like they're just in full like coping mode, and they also don't know how to, like, part of trauma is that it makes it so that you can't recount like a full like a narrative, like the events that happen to you, they're not in linear order. You can't just like talk about them, in this like, oh, and then this happened and this happened and then this happened. Instead, it's like this kind of jumbled memory that like your brain is kind of shutting out, that might be kind of like patchy. And so that's part of why victim stories often change, because they honestly, like, that's how trauma works, and they can't recount this like perfect narrative. But
They block it out.
yeah,
It's missing time. It's so fucking
exactly.
dramatic. They block it out, and that comes up years later as well. That'll come out later. That'll come up to the
Exactly.
surface like 20, 30 years later, 40, 50. Who knows when that fucking crazy. You can't fucking stuff that shit down.
Yeah, exactly. And and your body is constantly in like fight or flight or freeze or dissociate like mode.
I'm out of body. It's like it doesn't, you disassociate from your body and all that. And like
Exactly.
that's where the maybe loss of time comes from a little
And
bit because
that's,
you're not
it's
really in
like
it.
the only way to survive that, and all the things that happen to you in the life is just completely kind of like dissociating from your body.
So what's the best way to get over that? Is that through communication and communicating it, that people are not alone, that they're is that helpful to be in numbers like that, that when people are able to sort of talk about it and their trauma and know that they were a child and it wasn't their fault, and that
I think,
because they ripples through all the relationships after that
right.
as well.
Yeah, of course. It impacts everything. But I mean, yeah, I mean, being able to talk about, and the biggest thing is being understood and feeling actually like supported and validated, um, because they've been invalidated. They've been told time and time again that it's all their fault, that they deserve it, that they can never be anything else. So instead, being able to tell someone like, hey, you do have options, you are capable, and like I hear you and I see you, and this isn't your fault, you didn't deserve this. That in itself, as well as, you know, survivors being able to see other survivors who have successfully made it out, who have made a new life. And that takes so much work, so much effort and time. Doesn't happen overnight, but it's possible. And just knowing that it actually is possible makes all the difference. And in terms of being able to talk about your own story, your own trauma, like initially, it's always going to be a lot easier to talk to other people who've been through the same thing. And it's going to even take time to, period, maybe like talk about those things at all. But then it's like later on in the healing process, once you've already kind of had maybe mental health support and, you know, your basic needs are met and you're not in this constant state of like just survival, then the hope is that you can get to this place where you can fully share your story with others and shift the narrative so that you are truly a survivor. You are someone who has overcome this. You are not just a hoe, like you've been told, you know, and that. Yeah.
That's a trip. Yeah. It's like, because sometimes like when I started talking to my family about my trauma, I realized that it hadn't been talked about for like, this should have been talked about 20, 30 years ago. And then it just comes up now and I'm the one saying it. But I think it had value to them, but I think the value was speaking up loud, and I guess I needed to get it out. I was like, wait, did you guys not just see the last, like, what just happened? Like, did you not remember that? Or did you, and it didn't really matter. I felt like it really, honestly, it didn't really matter to them. Maybe it did in a small way, but I didn't see it. But it was more about how it made me feel. And that's right. I don't mean that it's not, I don't think it's egotistical, but I would never think that I would talk about my trauma out loud, which I've done on podcasts. So I don't need to reiterate it, but but once I start reaching down the rabbit hole, oh, my grandmother had trauma, my mother, my sister, my brother, everybody has this trauma, and they're great. My grandmother's great grandma, and all these, and I was like, oh shit, this is like fucking, this is an echo of like, this is just going to keep on going on and on forever unless somebody says something, and their own, if it's not to help, maybe there's gradual like evolution of that, but like I think people don't need to feel alone, but also saying it loud. I didn't really think the saying it loud was going to do anything.
There's so much power.
I didn't want to say about this thing out loud. I didn't want people to hear that. I was like, oh, that's good. But you're disassociated from it. Now I knew it was me, not me. It was just these weird arcs that our lives go through, and how you deal with them and express them. That's why art's been a big deal in my life. But like, it's like, if without art, I'd probably be in an insane asylum or a dead young actor in a hotel room. But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying there's so much power, honestly, though, in speaking out about things that have happened to you. And not only does it give you strength and a sense of control over those things, but it also empowers others to share about their trauma and their experiences. And through that, we build connection with one another. And there's nothing as healing as positive connection and relationship with others. Like, that is the one thing, no matter what kind of trauma you experience, like positive relationships with others. It's like we are both broken and healed through relationships.
Yeah, it's funny because like when you like I'm in a time in my life, I'm 53 now, where like I lived in LA long enough to see my friends become my enemies and my enemies become my friends. That there's an overlapping, there's like cycles of time, there's like 10, there's maybe like some people equate it 7 to 10 year cycles that things happen in. And the friends that you think that you're friends with now, or like when I was in my 20s and 30s, I thought I'd know those guys forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you don't. It's a weird cycle of things.
Right.
Eventually, this is weird, like wheel of time that's happening as you absorb and dissect information, and how you can do to, like, I just like making movies and art, and but there's also a story. We talked about a little bit of Juliana Redding, which was when we first met,
Right.
but that's a whole another apple cart of
Right. Yeah.
bullshit. But but yeah, I mean, it's a trip to see how social media is incorporated into this digital age of trafficking and manipulation, and so how we counterpart it with. And I know you want to leave soon, so let's wrap it up in 5 minutes. How can I people, you know, help, like identifying or just like seeing red flags, or I mean, not like we have to be a police state, but it's like, you know, what should be with me aware of as we go into the future, like the
Mm-hmm.
2020s. It'll be like this is gonna be retrofitted at some point, like social. There's gonna be other social platforms to get on. I mean, blah blah blah. The floor is yours. You can wrap it up, and you can end the episode when you want.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, let's see. That was kind of a lot of pieces there. Wait,
Yeah,
what was the first question?
I was trying to squeeze out every last one I could. It's like, oh, you better.
um, yeah, wait, okay, gosh. I'm like trying to reel it all in. I'm like so many things.
You're the voice of reason in this conversation.
I don't know about that. I've been spider webbing all over the place.
you This has been great. There's a lot of good information. I'm sure if somebody, you know, this is a very broad spectrum of like this
Right,
thing hits so many different bases. You know, this is like
exactly.
it's like goes all over the fucking place.
Right. I guess again, keep in mind the like indicators that I had mentioned, particularly when we're talking about youth. But I think a lot of it as well is trusting your gut. It's like if a situation looks wrong, if you look at a massage parlor and you're like something seems off about that place, you know, like it probably is. I'm a strong believer in trusting your instincts, and um, you know, I think that just being aware of your surroundings, and you know, like if you see a girl that's sitting at a bus station like all the time, and that, you know, like seems like maybe she's always like kind of waiting for someone or this and that, like, you know, maybe make a call, and just have someone check on her at the very least. Or another big thing, eye contact. Trafficking victims will not make eye contact with men other than their pimps. Or it'll be like very, you know, it'll be very brief, but they can't make, and that's kind of a rule that they can't make like extended eye contact with any man other than their pimp. Um, so
And also, just real quick, it might be a thing, but like, what would be the drug of choice for this scenario? Like, what people are on when they're doing this? Is this like a euphoric thing where it's like Quaalude thing, or it's like Quaaludes have been around since the '60s, but like, what are they generally on? Because sometimes you see people in the street and you don't know what the fuck they're on. They're like, holy shit, what the fuck is that?
right. I mean, that's one thing. It's like there is definitely a use of drugs, but it's not always, right? Um, like that is something that, you know, if a pimp can make their girl more dependent on them in some form, and so we're talking, it's going to probably be more addictive substances, that are cheap too, because they're not going to spend a lot of money, you know. But so maybe we're going to talk like crack or meth, or, you know, I mean, heroin, for my understanding, isn't like, you know, it can be cheap, but depending on, but you know, those more highly addictive substances, if you can get them hooked on that, so that, you know, there's
On that.
even one more reason that they're dependent on you and they have to come back to you, then, you know, that's something that will be utilized. But then also there's the piece that's just numbing yourself out so that you can endure what you have to endure day to day. If you're being raped 10 times a day, how do you deal with that unless you are, in an altered state of mind? Yeah. You're tripped out on something. And so, I mean, it could be more euphoric drugs as well, but I would say it's kind of all across the board, but it's like, if you can numb yourself, then great.
Well, this isn't a playbook on how to be a pimp. It'll be a warning label. If any of those people that we described are watching this fucking video, put yourself in jail right now and get out of the way.
Exactly.
Because we're gonna get you. So I did have a question that was actually, God damn it. What do you want to leave with? Because I know I had a question when I was listening to you, but I kind of lost it. But so that's what we can do as individuals. You're working hard and doing God's work and doing a great job, and it's really great to meet you. I mean, is there anything you want to part with? You want to say those numbers one more time? How to reach you? Gosh, I know I'm gonna remember this question as soon as we hang up. But is there anything else you want to leave us with, like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one big thing is that you can do something. No matter who you are watching this video, you can do something. And maybe that's just like talking to people around you. Maybe you feel compelled to donate to an anti-trafficking organization. But it's not hopeless work, and you can also be instrumental in identifying things that seem off, or if you see someone that looks like they're in need of help, maybe have a chat with them. Don't be like, oh hey, like, are you being trafficked? Because that's not going to work.
The note thing was really cool when the kid got the note and he said, yes, get me the fuck out of here, or whatever he said.
If that type of
that's
scenario
rare.
happens, like, great. Yeah, I mean, that person was aware that something seemed off, and and there are a lot of women out there, like, in the life, or that who have come out of the life, and they're like, yeah, no one ever asked me if I needed help. Like, I was in the ER like 15 times and no one asked me if I needed like help. So, maybe it is sometimes as simple as being like, hey, can I do anything for you? Are you safe? Do you need help? And getting them to, like, getting them in contact with someone who can, provide them the resources and help that they need. But just being open, being aware, educating others. That is the key here. And as far as the hotlines, again, National Human Trafficking Hotline, 888-373-7888. And if you want a more local line, you can call 971-235-0021. But again, I will leave it on that.
We'll just leave on a high note. I know there's gonna be questions after her, but so thanks, Claire. Vogelsang.
Claire Vogelsang.
I look forward to the next time we talk. I'm just gonna end on a high note because after I know there's more questions. I know there's more, but we did a nice splendid time. I think we might be hitting that over to our 20-minute mark after the third. But thanks for being on the show. More power to you. This is episode 81 with Claire
Vogelsang. And if you would like to contact me with questions, I will give you my email. It is claire@safetycompass.org.
Good. I'm glad you said that because that was one of maybe the questions I wanted to ask you, if you had ways people wanted to reach you. So I didn't know if you wanted that or not.
Yep. So email is ideal, and I will respond.
No Instagram, no nothing, no Instagram, no Facebook.
I mean, if you want to find me on Instagram, it's mostly just like, travel photos and things. It's literally just Claire Vogelsang. So my.
Oh wait, real quick. You just got back from where'd you come back from? The country that you come back from? Where?
Spain.
And can you tell us how? I know I'm logging it. Tell us your quick experience on being in Spain.
Yeah, so I was there to do El Camino de Santiago, which is, the Way of St. James pilgrimage. Maybe you're familiar with it, maybe you're not. There are a variety of routes. I was on the French route. My experience was ended early due to a severe injury of a friend dancing in an albergue, and which is a hostel, basically. But the plan was to walk around, 500 miles, or like 700 something kilometers. We ended up walking over 100 miles. So only part way, but highly recommend looking into that. And if you want a hell of an adventure and lots of new friends and just some time to walk a lot and reflect on your life.
Perfect. Gosh. Okay. Well, that's it. Let's just end it.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, awesome. Well,
what are you gonna do the rest of your, what are you gonna do the rest of your day?
I'm going to a barbecue, hanging out with some friends.
Nice. Well, as soon as this is up, I'll email you.
All right. Perfect.
Have fun.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.
Of course.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You're